right. Today we're going to be talking about chemical risk. You have a note sheet that you're going to keep some notes on, but I want you all to close your eyes for a second. When you open your eyes, you are no longer in the classroom. When you open your eyes, you will be in a regular setting where you're just having a conversation about life. You're just having a conversation about the things that you've experienced in life. So do not open your eyes and think that you're going to be taught something. Open your eyes and teach me something or tell me what you've experienced. Open your eyes. We're just having a conversation now. So, we recently talked about chemicals and how we benefit from them. Am I not? Yeah. And that was something that happened every day, right? Yeah. And you showed me ways that you benefited from those chemicals. Now we're going to flip it over and talk about how we are harmed by those chemicals. Some of them are the same chemicals that we've discussed how we're benefited from. Now, we use and come in contact with chemicals daily. True or false? True. Although some are helpful, like you showed me, some can also be considered dangerous. And dangerous chemicals are chemicals that can cause physical harm to people and or the environment. We often walk through life as if we're the only thing that exists. Is that true? We forget that there's animals. We forget that there's air. We forget that there's trees and birds and fish and dogs and cats. We just feel like, oh, anything that happens, if it doesn't affect me, then so what? But we have to remember that we're not the only things affected in the world. Also, we have the rest of our nature. So dangerous chemicals can be anything that harms people and or the environment. Got it? Now we need to know how to identify dangerous chemicals, and you already know because you know when not to use something based on these things that you look for. What are some of the words that you look for when you're identifying dangerous chemicals? Hazard. Poison. Caution. Toxic. Danger. Flammable. What else? Warning. Well, stinky doesn't mean harmful. It just means that it doesn't smell too good.
It's a symbol of a skull.
Skull and crossing bones. Yep.
One that says if in contact with skin, wash immediately.
Yep, it's contact, but it'll say like immediately or warning.
Yeah. The radiation symbol.
Yes, it'll be the radiation symbol. Yep.
Death.
Death. That's the number one. I look for like, can this kill me? Oh yeah. But do people still use stuff that can cause death? Yeah, they do. Biohazard signs. So we look for things like, and you want to make sure you're filling these in. You said danger. Hazardous. Some people said that. We should have been writing these things down while we were saying it. And these aren't the only warning signs or things that identify dangerous chemicals. This is just some. Poison. Caution. Toxic. I don't think anyone used the word toxic. Did you say toxic? Oh, okay.
Someone said.
Corrosive is another one. No one said corrosive.
Oh, that's the one I was thinking on the hot water heater.
Yeah, what is corrosive?
It burns.
It burns through objects, and actually what it's doing is eating away at it. It's a breakdown. It's a chemical reaction. And what chemical reaction breaks down things, Jack? Decomposition. And so it's decomposing that item, or it can break down your skin, which means it'll eat through your skin. So you want to be very careful of that.
Do they also put that on hot water? Yeah.
To tell you that it's not necessarily on hot water. It's around the chemicals that you could use over there.
Oh, yeah. Hot water heaters.
Hot water heaters, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
All right. Being exposed to chemicals. We said that we're exposed to chemicals every day. You can't stop it. You are exposed to it. Some diseases can be caused by exposure to certain chemicals. And we know this because we have family and we have friends that maybe have gotten a disease or have been affected, maybe not a disease, but an illness because of a chemical. And exposure just means being in contact with it. Now, at this point, do not go home and tell your parents that I told you that this chemical will give you this disease. There is nothing for sure about anything that will do something for sure. It has just been backed up by data and statistics and research. So research shows that it is a strong possibility, or there are possibilities that certain chemicals will cause certain diseases, and that's how we're approaching this here. So some of these things you already know, some of these things you may have never known. But for instance, if we increase the exposure to chemicals, so the greater the exposure to dangerous chemicals leads to a less risk or a greater risk? It'll give you a greater risk to health problems. So just being in contact, we're in contact with them every day. Maybe just being in contact with certain chemicals that sometimes will be fine, but the more we're exposed to certain chemicals, the greater the health risk. All right. Exposure to certain chemicals can increase your risk to certain diseases. We just said that. A person's risk of being affected by the exposure to dangerous substances is what we call individual susceptibility. Meaning you're susceptible because you're an individual. Depends on you, on how you're going to be affected. Some people will say, and that's why sometimes you can't take everyone's word for it, like, oh, well, my friend did this, so I'll be fine. Well, your friend's not you. That's why your mom says, well, if your friend jumped off the bridge, are you going to do it too? And you know what I had a student say to me in the past? Well, yeah, because I won't want to be the only one in the world. And some people are at greater risk than others just because of who they are. So what that means is what may be safe for one person may not be safe for another. So just because one person can do it doesn't mean you can do it.
Like allergies?
Allergies, and these are the reasons. Yes, allergies is one. So, for instance, if you have a friend that's allergic to peanuts, maybe you love peanuts, maybe you love walnuts, you put them in your brownies, you eat them in your cereal, you're fine. But a friend may have walnuts or peanuts, and it could kill them. So that's an individual susceptibility because they're allergic. Dogs and cats, maybe you have pets, but if your friend comes over, they can have a severe allergic reaction. That's true, right? That makes sense. It's happened. What are some other things that could be the reason for individual or increased susceptibility?
Certain medicines weaken your immune system.
Certain medicines weaken your immune system, which means that maybe you already have a certain type of ailment or an illness. And maybe it's an illness that is not something that's visible every day. Like some people have certain issues that only produce themselves or come up or flare up or whatever later on because of something else. It's not something that you can even see or know that they are quote unquote sick, because sick doesn't mean that you're walking around holding your head and doing this. Sick just means that maybe you have something going on with your body that any moment something can happen. So are we having an illness? No, if you already have an illness, this can be the reason for your individual susceptibility. Somebody, maybe if you have a cold already, or you were fighting a cold, and another disease you're exposed to, or something else, chances are you're going to get sick with that too, because what is your immune system already fighting off one thing that it's not being able to focus? You don't have enough soldiers to fight the other thing, so that other thing just comes marching on in. Another thing, another reason for individual susceptibility, and you already know this, is the low immune system. And I think this is the one you said, Johnny, right? Yeah, it's kind of ties into both. People that have low immune systems are people that are already sick, or babies. Why do you think babies have low immune systems?
They're just born.
What'd you say, Darius? Because Clayton just threw his voice way back there. They have not been exposed to anything, so they haven't built up anything yet, so they're going to get sick. And sometimes it's good for babies to get colds and stuff like that so their immune system can build up. Elderly people, because their immune system is deteriorating. So now they are open to receiving certain things. All right, any questions? We're good? We're having a conversation here? Is it working out great for you? All right, so in our conversation, tell me, how can you be exposed? Meaning, how can you come in contact with chemicals? Jack, be general, not specific.
Being near it.
So how can you be exposed to being near it?
By it being released from something.
So how can you be exposed to it then?
If you're near that thing.
How does it get in your body?
Oh, by breathing it in.
Breathing, so inhaling it. What else? Smelling it or breathing it?
Drinking it.
Drinking.
Touching it.
Touching. And touching doesn't just mean with your fingertips. It also can be put on your skin, on your scalp, just feeling or touching it or having it on your body. So we said breathing, we said smelling it, well, the same thing, breathing and smelling it, touching or feeling it, eating it, and drinking it. Yeah, Darius, what's your hand up for? You said drinking, okay. Okay. So what you eat, like you just told me, and what are some of the dangerous chemicals that you can be exposed to through eating? Pesticides, very good. Yes. What else? You have your hand up. Jack.
Well, no, that's a parasite.
What is it though?
Say salmonella.
Salmonella, but that's still dangerous. Yeah. So, but that is a parasite, but still, everything's made up of chemicals. Mold, good.
Fertilizers?
Fertilizers, yeah, they can be have some harmful things in it, for sure. Preservatives, additives, those things. People are allergic to red dye 40, and red dye 40 is in clothing and in some food. One lady did it. She has to be very careful when she buys clothes because even though the clothing may not be red, it may still have red dye. Like, I don't know about your sweatshirt, how it was made, but it's orange. But chances are it may have red dye 40. She didn't realize until she went to the store, tried on some clothes. She put on her shirt, she started breaking out in hives.
She's allergic to red dye 40?
Red dye 40. Some other people are allergic to red dye 40, and it's in food and certain drinks, and it can trigger seizures or allergic reactions. What are some dangerous chemicals that you can expose yourself to through drinking? Chlorine. It's in our water.
If you drink too much alcohol.
Alcohol, not just if you drink too much, you're exposed to a dangerous chemical because alcohol is a dangerous chemical. What else? What are some other things you can drink? What about this stuff that's in your water? You got, not only do you have chlorine in your water, you have lead in your water. Which maybe there could be mercury in your water. What are some dangerous chemicals that you can be exposed to through touch or feel? That's not a chemical. Mercury in makeup. Mercury in some foods that you're preparing. Some dangerous chemicals you can be exposed to with your fingernail polish remover that has acetone in it. If you're touching batteries, the acid there. Some are non-acetone, but they still have some chemicals in there that could be dangerous to you over long-term exposure. Jack?
Acid.
He said that acid, yes?
I have a question.
Yes?
What is she touching?
That's mercury.
What's cooking, Doc?
That's awesome.
All right, what you breathe. We talked about smelling and breathing. What are some dangerous chemicals that you can expose yourself to through breathing?
Cigarettes.
Cigarette smoke, good. Who are the people that have no control over being exposed to cigarette smoke?
Babies.
Babies, because babies can't get up and leave.
Also stomach.
What else? Carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide. What about fumes that come out of buildings? Car exhaust,
I was gonna say smoke.
smoke,
Gas fumes.
gas fumes, all of those things. Fumes from your nail polish, fumes from glue if you're working on something or you're working on a car. Gasoline fumes. Certain types of drugs. Hopefully none of you haven't been exposed to that. I hope not, but if you have, then yes. Oh, I thought you had your hand up.
Oh, yeah, paint.
Paint fumes, yes, definitely. Jack, I didn't hear you.
Sharpie.
Oh, yes, yes, the fumes from your markers, yes.
Plaster thinner.
Yes, all of that. All right, the government has done some things to reduce your chemical exposure because they realize, you know what, this is a problem and we need to reduce this. So we're responsible for regulating certain amount of chemicals being exposed into our environment to help people and to help our environment. So the government came up with two laws. It's the Clean Water Act, Lauren. It's the Clean Water Act of 1972 and the Clean Air Act of 1970. But these laws, these are only 30 some odd years old. They have not been in place for a long, long time. Prior to this, people were getting rid of waste however they felt like it. What do you think people were putting all their trash and garbage at?
Gullies.
Which would be where? In,
Depends on where you.
In the sewer.
in the sewer or just throwing them in the ocean. It's like, whatever.
Like clean water reservoirs or just lakes.
Yep. Right.
Litter everywhere.
They would just throw stuff out. Factories that were making stuff like plastics and things like that, they would just let the fumes in the air. But the government came along and said, you know what? We have to reduce this. This is becoming a problem. People are getting sick. Things are dying. So we have to be able to say, okay, factories, you can't produce this much plastic because you're letting out this much toxin. They can't stop them because there's just nowhere to put all that stuff. Same thing with the Clean Water Act. Is it relevant right now, or do you just have a comment? Okay.
That's not the question. Okay, you'll get pulled over if too much smoke is coming out.
Oh yeah, you will, because you're polluting the air, for sure. And they want to know what's going on for the air environment and for your health, because your car can blow up. All right. So with that being said, the government has done their part with coming up some things. Also think about smoking bans. That's another one you want to add. Smoking ban. Remember when we moved here about 5 years ago, you go to a restaurant. This side, non-smokers, smokers. Non-smoker, smoker. What's separating your smoke from getting over there to them?
Like a
It's
cup.
a wall.
Nothing.
So the smoke's gonna say, oh, this is a non-smoking area. No, that smoke's gonna come on and whip right by your nose, and you're over here eating, enjoying your meal, coughing up. So the government came up with the smoking ban, or the county, because when we moved here 5 years ago, there was no smoking ban. We would go bowling, and people over there be smoking, and we over here wouldn't be. And I'm like, what the heck? Because in New York, that came up with that law about 12 years ago. So I was like, oh my God, this is horrible. And they felt like, well, these people have the right to have clean air. You can smoke your brains out, you're sick. Well, these people are smokers, right? Yeah. You can smoke your cigarettes and kill yourself, but you don't have the right to kill these people. All right? So they came up with smoking bans as well. So now in North Carolina, you cannot smoke in public places. All right.
I refuse to look up any more records because you talk mean to me. Say you're sorry.
I'm sorry.
No.
All right, so what this is basically saying the government came up with laws or came up with regulations for reducing your exposure. What can you do to reduce your exposure? Recycling. What else?
Stay away from smokers.
Stay away from smokers. Choose the areas that you go to. How is that going to reduce your exposure to dangerous chemicals? That's just saving on electricity. But right now we're talking about the 4 ways. Remember, touch, smell, taste, or drink. How can we reduce exposure to doing those things?
Like install like a filter to filter.
Okay, you can drink clean water or install a filter. Good.
You can check where your food is coming.
Read the instructions on the back of your food. Very good.
Reading the ingredient label.
Good. Wash your hands. Very good. Jack.
Avoid dangerous places.
Avoid dangerous places.
Check your fire alarms in your house because
Carbon monoxide.
yes.
Wash your food off. That is a very important one. Another one you guys want to be very careful of, ladies and gentlemen. Read the back of your makeup. Read your lipstick, okay? Make sure, see what they're made of. Know about chemicals that are in your things. That is very, very, very important. Don't write. This is something you all do. Hey, take that away right now. Until we're done. You can look at that later, okay? Because some of those things on the back of your makeup, you can't even pronounce it. You know what it is? Look it up. Don't just assume that because it's a pretty color, it'll be fine. You also, I see you guys writing on your arm or letting other people write on you, phone numbers, your homework, I love me, I love so-and-so, whatever the case may be. Stop doing that. You are exposing yourself to dangerous chemicals. It's not cool, okay? So you got to stop doing types of things like that. All right, now we're going to run through some diseases. And a lot of these diseases you have heard of already, but maybe you didn't know what chemicals were associated with them. Some of them you may not have heard of, so you're going to be learning some things new through our discussion. All right, so who knows what the #1 killer disease is right now? Lizzie. Cancer. Cancer is the #1 killer right now. And 5 years ago, that was not true. 5 years ago, they would have said AIDS or heart attacks. Now it's cancer. Most people that died, he's like, what they died of? Oh, they had cancer. We just had a relative to us, and I can tell you that you didn't really know her. Our cousin's mother. Not funny. Just found out yesterday that she passed away of cancer. We didn't even know she was sick. But most of the time, 9 times out of 10, you hear about someone passing away. Like, what happened? They're like, oh, they had cancer. And you're like, Oh my God. Someone had cancer. I'm sorry. You didn't even know. You didn't even know the cousins. All right. What on your paper it says substances that cause cancer are called what? Carcinogens. And 5 years ago, my students didn't know the term carcinogen. They're like, oh, car who? But now it's kind of common. Like a carcinogen is anything that causes cancer. So if we're saying something is related to causing cancer, then it's considered a carcinogen. So cancer is the disease that we're discussing. Now we're going to look at several carcinogens, which are things that cause cancer. On your chart, you'll be writing some things under the kinds of carcinogens, and then I'll lay out the body parts that it may affect. Notice I have may. Asbestos. Asbestos are found in walls of old buildings.
And mines.
Yes. And it's only dangerous when it's airborne. So they put it looks like this stuff, and when they put it in the walls of buildings, it was a good insulator, so it kept the building warm. But when you have people who worked in tearing down old buildings, then they've now become exposed to asbestos. And a lot of you've seen the commercial where mesothelioma. Yep. Yep. And this is an affected liver from asbestos. This is another affected, I think this is the bladder over here. No, not the bladder. This is the lungs. These are lungs, I'm sorry, not the liver. So the body, yeah, because they're affected, they're cancerous. The body, remember, cancer is an overgrowth of cells, which means the cells just keep multiplying and multiplying bad cells. And the body parts that it affects is your lungs, your colon, your larynx, which is in your throat, and your gastrointestinal system. What's gastro mean? Your stomach here, and we learned that. Another carcinogen is alcohol. It's only been sitting up there for 10 minutes now. And we know that alcoholic beverages can give you cancer of the mouth. It also can affect your pharynx, your esophagus, your liver, and your breast. In men and women. Men can have breast cancer as well. And here, this picture here shows you, wrong one, sorry. This picture here shows you some other things that alcohol can affect. Some of you that are anxious to get older just so you can drink alcohol, you might want to think about some of these things. Ladies, it also can make you infertile, which means you can't have babies. Gentlemen, it can make you impotent, which means you can't have any babies. It can affect your bones. So if you want to be an athlete and you think you're going to drink alcohol, that will affect your bones. You can get osteoporosis from it. Stomach ulcers, holes in your stomach. You can stop breathing. You can get bleeding of your throat. Yeah, that doesn't sound good at all. So, liver disease and kidney disease. And it also makes you look very old at a young age. Addiction, that's another thing. Being addicted to something is not fun. All right. There is an affected pancreas. Actually, no, that's a kidney. I'm sorry. Arsenic is another carcinogen. In your box, don't try to write all of these words, but you need to have in your box, after you put arsenic, and you need to put that it's in electronic devices. It's also used in ammunition to round the bullets. Arsenic is in bullets. And it's in rat poisoning.
Yeah, that's why I know that.
No, they call a fire person who starts a fire arson. All right. And arsenic can cause skin cancer. It also can cause cancer in the lungs, the kidney, the liver, and the gastrointestinal system. Benzene. Benzene's element formula is C6H6. It's colorless and it's a sweet-smelling liquid. It's an organic solvent, means that other things can dissolve in it. And it's used in production of plastics, so we have that already on your paper. You also want to put that it's a degreaser. People use it to clean up grease, like on stuff. It's used in glues. It's used in some dyes, like in clothing. It's all, or fabrics. It's also used in detergents. You want to get these things down. This will make your life a lot easier for your next upcoming task. Pesticides has benzene. Antifreeze, yes, that is another one. Good. Might want to put that down, especially for people who are mechanics. It's an antifreeze. That's a good one. Thank you, Mason. And it can cause bone marrow cancer. Where's your bone marrow at?
Inside your bone.
Inside your bone, yes. Good. I am very proud of every class I've asked that. They've all known what the bone marrow is. So that's awesome. All right. Coal tar. This is used in the production of streets. So who do you think is exposed to this?
Everybody.
Everybody, but especially construction workers. They have more exposure. But when you're driving down the street and you're smelling all that, fumes from them laying down coal tars, that's exposure as well. And it can cause skin cancer. It can cause cancer of the lungs and the mouth, your larynx, again, which is in your throat, your bladder, and your bone marrow. Radon. Radon is an element used in earthquake detection. So what part of the U.S. do you think is highly exposed to radon? West Coast. For sure. Yep, the West Coast. Not only can it cause lung cancer, but they also use it in medical treatment. They used to use radon to help as a cure for cancer, to see if it was a cure for cancer. And guess what? It causes cancer. Secondhand smoke. What kind of what is secondhand smoke? Meaning you're breathing in, but you're not smoking. So children beg parents, please don't make me smoke your cigarette. And this would affect your skin. So people who don't smoke give you skin cancer. Now this one is very near to me because I had a friend, 8, you're 13. So, yes you are. So 9 years ago, a friend of mine actually went to the doctors and she was not feeling very well, and the doctor told her, you need to cut down smoking. And she's like, I don't smoke. And what happened was her father had smoked all her life in her house because she was young, and then she moved upstairs from him, and her mother lived downstairs, and so she was always exposed to cigarette smoke. And then she started getting really, really bad stomach aches, and her stomach started getting really bloated. And she went to the doctors, and she had a stomach tumor, and it was stomach cancer, and she died shortly after that. She was only 25 years old. So this stuff is really near and dear to me, not to mention that my mother-in-law is a survivor of breast cancer. So, and then my husband's grandmother died of cancer. So this is not something lightly, and I'm sure you all know someone who's actually either had cancer, survivor of cancer, or maybe died of cancer. So you don't want to take this stuff lightly. It's not a funny matter. But secondhand smoke can cause lung, stomach, and skin cancer. Then regular tobacco smoke, which would be regularly smoking a cigarette. It can give you lung cancer, bladder, mouth, pharynx, larynx, esophagus, and your pancreas. This is an infected pancreas. Well, look at this right here. Uh-oh. In addition to, for those of you that may think smoking a cigarette looks cool, no one wants to talk to anyone with jacked up teeth and stinky breath and your teeth all yellow and black. Not only that, you can have a stroke, you can become addicted, which means you're depending on it. Wrinkles, makes you look very old, very young. Tooth decay, gum disease, the least of your problems. Stained fingers, that's the very least of your problems. But you can cancer of the throat, we've already talked about. Lung disease, liver cancer, stomach ulcers, again, that's holes in your stomach. Ulcers, you also can get uterine cancer. Again, men, you won't be able to have babies. Women, babies. Bladder cancer, and then if you're an athlete, don't forget about the osteoporosis, which affects your bones and your joints. So, and it's very hard to breathe. You have no stamina being able to run. Chewing tobacco. Who are the number one people in the world who chew tobacco? Baseball players. And guess what kind of cancer that causes? Of your mouth. And then not only that, you can have lung cancer, bladder, again, your pharynx or your larynx, your esophagus, and your pancreas.
swallow it.
because it's still a chemical that's you're putting in, exposing to your.
Yeah, I know that.
It doesn't matter if you're swallowing it when you're chewing it. Things are going into your pores of your mouth, so you're still affected. Just like smoking, cigarette smoke that just comes around, you're still affected by it.
I know you don't.
And one of the main things that a lot of you did not know, bleach, which has chlorine in it. Bleach is a carcinogen, and it infects the entire body. Why? Because we use it to clean our clothes, we use it to clean our homes. So it is corrosive, but we are exposed to it in so many different ways, so you can get cancer. So, yes,
Can't people be like allergic to bleach?
people can be allergic to bleach.
With my niece.
Yes, and our old assistant principal, she was allergic. Hey, yeah. It's in your clothes, so yeah, you're exposed to it because now you're putting those clothes on your skin. And the fumes from using it, those are fumes that you're inhaling. Okay, let me answer this question because I got this question a lot, and I think Darius and I actually had a conversation about this. They say in health class that cancer is genetic. That's not true. The reason why they linked it to being genetic, what you have to understand is, you live with your who? Okay, so whatever your parents are exposed to, who else is exposed to it? You are. So if a person lives with someone else, whatever they're exposed to, that person is exposed to. If your parents get something, they say chances are you're going to get it because you've had the same exposure. So it's not because it's through your bloodline, it's the exposure that you've had. Okay? Yes.
So why do people whose like parents have had cancer, like my dad's mom died of cancer, but he still has to get regular colonoscopies?
Because again, did he live with his mother when he was younger?
Yeah,
But it's still exposure. It doesn't matter. They don't know when cancer comes about. Because these things you've been exposed to and over a long period of time, then it may develop. So it's not like catching a cold. Everyone has cold this week and next week, now you're sick. All right. The next disease is a disease which the person's immune system attacks certain cells, tissue, or organs of the body. What type of disease do you think this is, Jack? No, I need an answer when you raise your hand. Darius. No. This is autoimmune, self. Autoimmune. And what this is your body attacking itself. So that's like you walking down the street doing this all day. Punching yourself in the face or punching yourself in the stomach or kicking yourself. Because your immune system is what's responsible for attacking diseases. Well, if your immune system is actually attacking yourself, it can't attack anything else. And that's not cool. You don't want to fight yourself. Some type of autoimmune diseases, stay with me, chronic fatigue syndrome. Chronic fatigue syndrome is where no matter how much sleep they get, no matter how many nutrients they eat, they're just tired all the time. And not like, oh my God, Miss Wiggins, I'm just tired in here because I didn't sleep very long yesterday. No, it doesn't matter what they do. Their body is just worn out. They just want to sleep all day, not because they're lazy. HIV is not an autoimmune disease. It's actually a disease, but it causes the body, the HIV, their immune system shut down because their immune system has been hijacked. Crohn's disease, yes.
And diabetes.
Lupus, not diabetes.
Not diabetes.
Fibromyalgia, which is when you're in pain. Lupus is of the liver. Crohn's is of your colon or your intestines. And if you want to add Crohn's disease there, that's good. I just did some examples. All right. Implicated chemicals. What does implicated mean? Things that are associated with it. So one of the chemicals that are associated with autoimmune disease would be pesticides. Research has been done that pesticides actually, autoimmune disease is associated with the use of pesticides. Another one would be household cleaners. Another one would be hair dye. You need to be writing this. And even vaccinations have been associated with autoimmune diseases. The next disease that we're going to discuss is one where it's caused where the fetus is exposed to certain chemicals, and it can be mental retardation or even brain damages, and these would be birth defects. One specific type of birth defect is fetal alcohol syndrome, which is also known as FAS. And this is caused when a mother drinks excessively while pregnant. So fetal alcohol syndrome. A child who normally has fetal alcohol syndrome, they usually look very old at a young age. They also are very small in weight, and they have deficiencies or they slowly grow. They don't grow as fast as their peers. 1 second, Johnny. And they also have they don't learn as fast as their peers. And someone with fetal alcohol syndrome, this is an example of some characteristics. And this child is probably only 1 or 2.
What?
All right, some implicated chemicals for fetal alcohol syndrome. Obviously, not fetal alcohol syndrome. Some implicated chemicals for birth defects. One we know is alcohol. Another one would be sedatives. And you want to add this information. Sedatives would be anything that is prescribed to a person to calm them. Like lots of times if someone suffered a loss in their life, maybe if it's a wife lost their husband, or a husband lost their wife, or a child lost their parent, that can be unnerving. That means your nerves will be unsettled, or if you experienced a car crash or something that was very shocking to you, they may give you a sedative like a Valium or a tranquilizer where it'll help you be calm. Sleeping pills. People that have trouble sleeping, they may prescribe a sedative. Muscle relaxers. These are for after people have some type of surgery, or if you have a sports injury. When I had my surgery, my muscles would tense up, and if you ever had a muscle cramp, it's 2 times worse than that when your muscles spaz on you. You take a muscle relaxer and it helps relax those muscles. Michael Jackson died of these. Whitney Houston died of these.
Oh. Like, isn't it a muscle spasm when you like wake up in the middle of the night and like
You could have that, and that may be lack of potassium. Another implicated chemical would be the chemicals in acne cream. Isotretinoin is a chemical in certain acne creams that causes birth defects. You want to write this down. The next type of disease would be one that is caused by many things, including genetics, or some are caused by chemical exposure, and these would be learning and behavioral disorders. ADHD is a learning disorder. It also could be a behavioral disorder. And none of these diseases are contagious. All of these may be associated with exposure to certain chemicals. ADD, where the person is having a hard time focusing. Autism, yes, is definitely one. Asperger's disease.
is like speech apraxia.
No, that's just that you have a speech impediment.
Okay.
One implicated chemical that we're going to talk about is lead and lead-based paint.
Would dyslexia be one?
It falls under a learning disorder, but I don't think it falls under because of it's a chemical exposure. It's just the way that your brain was wired. So dyslexia is a learning disorder, but it's not one that falls under because of a chemical exposure. Lead poisoning. If you're exposed to lead, it could cause lead poisoning, which would lead to a learning and a behavior disorder. The way that people are exposed to lead poisoning is through lead-based paint. And before 1952, they used to paint the inside of houses with lead-based paint. So that means the paint had lead in it. And what colors do people use colors? Cut it out. Do people use colors to paint the inside of their house? Sometimes they're different colors, right? You have to use different colors for different rooms. And if that chips off, what does it look like to little children?
Chips.
If it's like purple and pink, candy.
I want it.
So what do you think the little kids do? They eat it. And lo and behold, it's actually sweet tasting. So they gnaw on it. So what do you think? Where do you think you're going to find that kid the next day?
No.
You're going to find them over there gnawing on those little chip paints again because it's like where they get their treat from. Exposure over time will lead to lead poisoning. Quiet, guys, and listen up. Which then also leads to learning disorders and behavior disorders. We had a child last year that had lead poisoning and had a learning disorder, and it was because of the lead poisoning. They also used to paint your Tyco cars that you play with when you were younger with lead paint. What did kids when they're small normally do with their toys? You put them in your mouth.
Oh wow, it tastes
All right. The next thing, next disease is one that can be affected by a variety of diseases, and it causes the kidneys to function improperly, and it can be caused by exposure to chemicals. Your kidney is your organ that filters out waste and water from the blood, so this is what filters for you to be able to pee, and this will be considered kidney disease. One where your kidneys fail you or kidneys aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing. Mm-hmm.
Can diabetes be affected by?
We're going to come up to that in a moment. Implicated chemicals. First of all, on your paper, all right. So there goes your kidney disease. The next disease would be a general name for this disease that affects the heart. So any disease that affects your heart or your cardiovascular system, this would be heart diseases. So this would be like your stroke, your atherosclerosis, heart attacks, all of that stuff. Implicated chemicals would be exposure to chemicals such as cigarette smoke and illegal drugs. Alcohol too. These can cause heart diseases like strokes, heart attacks, atherosclerosis. The next disease is one that causes your air passages in your lungs to narrow, creating a shortness of breath. You're wheezing and you're coughing. This will be asthma. And an inhaler is a steroid that helps stimulate the breathing. It's not something that shoots air down. It helps get the air passageway open so that you can breathe. These are associated with some chemicals, like cigarette smoke. Cigarette smoke has been associated with being able to be the cause of asthma or triggering an asthma attack. Air pollutants in the air, can have caused asthma or triggered an attack. Aerosol spray can trigger an attack. Perfumes or colognes. This is why if you're trying to spray anything in here, I say do not, because some people are asthmatic, or some people can develop asthma. So you should not spray anything like that in a closed area. You should be in an open area that's well ventilated. Got it? Yes?
No.
Okay. The next one will be a long-term or chronic skin disorder that involves scaly or itchy rashes. Nope.
Ooh, what is that? Shingles.
No, shingles is actually the chickenpox virus.
Mine is
It's called eczema.
I got one on my ear and right here in my face.
That's a big one.
Again, none of these are contagious. They're not contagious diseases. You can't get them from anyone else. It's either they're linked to exposure to certain chemicals. So here's from the mild to getting more severe type of eczema. The associated chemicals or implicated chemicals would be things like cigarette smoke, where if you're exposed to that, you could develop eczema. Some topical creams or lotions, body washes. No, hydrocortisone cream helps it, doesn't develop it. Detergents, some perfumes or colognes, even dairy products. You want to write these down?
Yeah, dang it. Sorry.
And even makeup. Hmm?
Is that like if I spilled milk on it?
No, drinking milk. Remember, this is not about skin. Drinking it because now it's in your body, and your body is developing
Well,
something.
why would it affect the outside of the body, but not the inside?
Same reason why inhaling cigarette smoke can give you skin cancer. Everything you put in your body, everything you put on, taste, drink, gets into your body. Anything in your body is going to affect the outside of your body. Any question? Any more questions? All right, then the last one. This is a disease that affects the body's ability to break down sugar for energy. So it affects the pancreas. Clayton. Diabetes. There are 2 types of diabetes. Note and behold, first one's called type 1. The causes of type 1 are unknown, but there are beliefs that it's from vaccinations. Again, please don't tell your parents that I said you shouldn't get a vaccine because you can get diabetes. I'm just saying that there's some research out there that says there's some links. There's also some research out there that says there aren't any links. Type 2 is the second name. Did you figure that?
No, I didn't.
These are mostly related to health and lifestyle. So these are the ones where if you don't have a healthy lifestyle, you don't exercise much, you don't eat well, you just stuff your face or whatever, you become overweight, then chances are you can develop type 2 diabetes. However, as far as the implicated chemicals, steroids that are used for asthma have been linked to causing type 2 diabetes as well.
So you can end up with asthma and diabetes.
That's not funny. She has asthma and she got diabetes.
Isn't there a type that you're born with?
That would be, if you're born with one, that most likely is type 1. Right? Any questions about this? Yes.
What happens with hypoglycemia? Like, how does that happen?
Let me talk to you about that later, because I'm hypoglycemic. Let me go with this. Because it's not an effect of a chemical. Alrighty. So, we're now going to talk about commercials, because commercials sell these products, don't they?